We are lucky enough to be joined by the queen of body image coaching herself, Stephanie Dodier. If you feel like you think about your body all day long, if you keep putting your life on hold until you lose weight, until you look a certain way, and you think that once I hit a number on the scale, then I'll be happy, then I can relax, but this endless chase has been part of your life for the majority of your adult life. You keep jumping from one diet to another. Maybe you lose the weight, but end up gaining that weight back, and your body image just keeps getting worse over time. And you just want to feel comfortable in who you are. You want to stop constantly worrying about what other people are thinking or saying about you. You want to take pictures and go to social events and show up and be comfortable and have your head held high, but you have no idea how to start changing your thoughts that you have around your body, then this episode is going to be so powerful for you. So we are going to go into the nitty-gritty of thought work, how you don't have to believe every thought that you're having. You're going to learn about mindset. We're also going to talk about intuitive eating and how it got started and how it has evolved over time. Stephanie is an ex-dieter turned life coach who has walked in many of your shoes, and she takes us through the exact process that she had to learn for herself to change her body image and create unshakable confidence for herself. So this body image episode is something that you cannot skip. So let's get into today's conversation.
So Stephanie Dodier, I'm a clinical nutritionist and a life coach, and I have a PhD in dieting. I like to introduce myself in that, and I'm a reformed dieter, but I dieted from the age of 15 to the age of 36, 37, and I did it all, losing and gaining, always trying to be enough. And then my body, alongside with my corporate career, my body just collapsed at the age of 38, and I found another way, and I left the corporate career, went back to school, and then did start a traditional nutrition business with the clinic in a very traditional model. And I kept seeing the same story as me. I kept seeing women after women after women with the same story that I had that I wasn't owning yet. And that got me into the world of health at every size and intuitive eating. Actually, 6 years ago, almost to this day, I hired Evelyn Triboli. Back in the days where nobody knew about intuitive eating, to be my coach. And then she introduced me to someone else and to someone else, and it just started from there. And here I am today. I have a business called Beyond the Food, and I work exclusively with women from a feminist lens to help them be confident. And I know that's what you want to talk about today. So that's what I do.
Yeah. Wow. What an interesting story. You mentioned that you started dieting at the age of 15. And so what was the messaging that you got about your body growing up before you decided, I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to try to lose weight?
Well, it's very simple. At the age of 12, my mother walked me into Weight Watcher with her. So I don't call that period of my life between 12 and 15 as me dieting, because it wasn't really conscious. It was me going to Weight Watcher with my mom. But from that moment, my body wasn't good. My body was broken. And I still have a vivid traumatic memory of me standing on the scale at Weight Watcher. And you have to remember, I'm 12 years old, so I'm smaller. And I have this lady pointing her finger at me. You ate too much. You didn't lose weight. Drink more water and chew gum. That was my entry point in what was not known at the time, but diet culture. So my body, for all I remember of my adult conscious life, my body was wrong. I did not know anything else. So I had to reconstruct a new person, a new version of me to be neutral about my body, because it never really existed. It's bad.
Yeah. And I had a similar experience. I never grew up in a bigger body according to society, but I was a synchronized swimmer. And in that sport, basically everything is about shrinking your body.
Yeah.
And I had been conditioned into thinking that same thing around bodies is if you gain weight, you've done something wrong.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, like it's during those formative years when you were 12 years old, your brain hasn't formed those like conscious beliefs yet. And so you're learning from whatever messages you get from the doctors or from your parents, like that becomes your reality. And it's hard, like you mentioned, like you don't even see that there's a different way of thinking, that there's a different truth or a different reality. That's all you know.
And your environment. So I'm 47. So back in the 80s, that was happening in the 80s. My mom was with me dieting. All my aunts, I got 12 aunts, all dieting. So everywhere you went, every woman in my life hated her body. So it's just the norm.
Yeah. And
So
this is,
dieting and hating your body was being normal.
yeah. And then at what point you mentioned at 37, 38, your body collapsed. So what did that look like for you?
So I had a corporate career. I worked for Hudson's Bay Company, and I was in a high position. I had a lot of people reporting to me. So I walked on stage to have a team meeting. I had 2,000 people in front of me. And from the back of the stage to the podium, there was about 20 steps. And I started having a panic attack. And I started in those 15, 20 steps, started not being able to breathe. And I literally collapsed. Like it wasn't just in my head collapse, like I collapsed on stage, got rushed to the hospital. They ruled out the heart attack, and I got the diagnoses of panic attack syndrome, high anxiety syndrome, and a whole bunch of other chronic conditions. So literally my body collapsed from all the abuse, mental, emotional, and physical I had done to my body. And it redirected me into a new path of my life.
Okay. Yeah. And that's the thing. Those you mentioned from 15 to 37. So during those 22 years, like what was your life like during those years when you were constantly trying to change your body and resist your body?
On a diet or not on a diet. Like that was my life was filtered around, was I on a diet at that time of my life or not? Was I restricting food? In the first years, it was low calorie, low fat. So was I a good low calorie, low fat person? And back in the days, it's to date you, but we used to carry a book around. There was no apps. It was a book with calories. So I was a good person when I carried my book around with me and I tracked all my calories. So everything was surrounded food, exercise, and losing weight. And then I was in a depressive state when I wasn't on a diet and I gained the weight back. And I went through cycles of depression and feeling terrible about myself until I hit rock bottom. And the get me out of rock bottom was the next diet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 25 years of my life like that. Yet I was a high performer and I had a career where I was masking all of this in the corporate world. So I was pushing myself beyond my limit while maintaining that other part of my life where I was restricting food severely. I was over exercising. So I wasn't living life.
Yeah. And it's so similar how your story, even though we have two completely different stories, we're, 20 years apart, and I never experienced life in a larger body, my mental side of it could not have been more similar. And when it comes to body image, it all lives in your head. And I don't know if you ever felt that way, but I know that I did, and a lot of my clients do. It's like I was so successful in all these other areas of my life. I was doing good in school. I had a social life. I had a great family. But yet the core feeling that I had around my life was you're a failure because you haven't figured out this food and body image part.
Yeah, that's what I call the not enough syndrome. And that's partly why I was overperforming. I was offsetting. Every other part of my life was an offset for not being foundationally not good enough. Because from the age of 10, I was believed not to be enough. So that's who I was. I did not know anything else. So everywhere that I could, I tried to offset and prove to the world that I was good. That's why I was a high performer.
And when you were losing weight, when you were on the wagon, because I'm assuming that you probably had the mentality of like, okay, well, if I respect my diet, if I hit a certain weight, then I'll start feeling different. Then I'll feel like I'm enough. And when you did hit, if you ever did hit whatever your goal weight was, how did you feel about yourself? Did you ever feel enough?
No. The only time I felt enough was like through therapy and like taught work later. It was another, I would pick on something else. And I remember vividly losing the weight and picking on my loose skin. Now I wasn't good enough because I had too much loose skin, or my body wasn't toned enough. So then I would start over exercising, or then I would pick, I don't make enough money, I got to go for the next level in my career. Like it was because foundationally, I did not know how to think of myself as enough. So no, I never, and now that I know what I know, it's impossible for you to get there by external elements.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you mentioned that you had that very like rock bottom moment for you.
Well, many of them, yes.
Yeah. And the collapse kind of woke you up. And so what did it look like? What did your life look like from that point on? Like, how did you start pulling yourself into a new reality, a new way of thinking?
So in that moment, I was still working in a corporate world, and I came back from the hospital, started to take all those medications, and the symptom continued. So what, and I want to talk about psychosomatic because it's really psychosomatic. I would, every Monday morning, we had a conference call with everybody in the organization. I had to talk to all those 50,000 people. So at the moment where I was about to hit the hands-free button, talk, every day for the next 2 weeks, I had a panic attack. Wow. So I was desperate of finding a solution so that I can continue to speak, because not being able to speak mean I was going to get fired, because that was my livelihood. And I was desperate to keep my job. And I was exploring, so kind of the motivation to explore other solution was out of fear, paralysis, my life's going to end. Who am I if I'm not this vice president person? So it was motivated by desperation, but it allowed me to explore so many things. And as I started to explore ways of calming myself, that's when the panic attack ended. And as soon as I stopped, I was doing massages and hypnotherapies and all kinds of stuff, like desperate of like just like calming down. As soon as when I wanted to stop, the panic attack would come back. So it was a huge lesson for me that at 38 to learn that you have to take care of yourself. That not even the concept of worth taking care of yourself, just that there is this thing that you actually can take care of yourself.
Yeah. And when you were doing the massages and the hypnotherapy, like all of these things that kind of worked outside of your brain and were external, what you're saying is like, because you never addressed the root cause of what was causing the panic attacks, it would always just come back.
Yeah. But that's what you know. Like that's what was accessible to me at the time. And it worked, but it became a lot of maintenance to keep myself calm. And then I'm a spiritual person, so I believe that things happen for a reason. So as I left the corporate world, went back to school, I'll give you the example of when I became aware of the underlying problem is when I went to a therapist for the first time. I never had any experience of therapy. I had experience of coaching in the corporate world and executive coaching, but never had the experience of therapy. And I was telling her at the time, like, I need to lose weight because I was gaining weight because I couldn't be hardcore. And she asked me a question. She says, so why do you want to lose weight? Such a simple question. Why do you want to lose weight? And I was speechless. I could not answer. And I looked at her and I'm like, because I have to? She's like, but you don't have to. Why do you want to lose weight? And that one question propelled me to rethink everything about my life. Because again, I was never given the permission to not try to lose weight. Never. And it's not until somebody asks you these kind of questions that you start thinking about, well, there's this other thing you could do. And then I continued in therapy working with her, and then I started to work in coaching, which is two different fields, but I started to coach, and I started to understand the real reason where I believe I wanted to lose weight, the real reason why I was such a high performer was because of that core belief that I wasn't enough. And that took just, lining up the right people in the right timing, that took 5 years.
Wow.
From 38 to like 43 till I met a coach who helped me rebuild my self-esteem. Step by step by step.
Wow. Isn't that crazy how it can take so long of digging and trying to understand to get to our core beliefs that drive how we feel and how we behave every single day subconsciously. We don't know that these beliefs are in the driver's seat and they're running wild and you're just a passenger kind of watching the wreckage from the sidelines.
Yeah, and I you use the term wreckage. I can't even tell you that it was wreckage that I was looking at. I just thought that was life. Because it's not, for people to understand, it's not just one belief. It's a collection of beliefs. My whole view of the world was completely different before, right? It was, the world is scarce, the world is dangerous, the world hates fat people, you have to be thin. Like, it was like a pile, a big ball of belief that you have to chip at one by one by one to realize that back then it was a wreckage, but I couldn't define it as a wreckage. I thought this was life. So if anybody's listening to this and they're like, well, my life is not a wreckage, it makes total sense, because you don't think or believe there could be anything else.
You don't know there's something better out there.
So that's just life for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is so something that I experience because I do a lot of thought work with my clients, and within, a couple of weeks, they start seeing glimmers of positivity in their life. And it's only once you see how negative your thinking has chronically been for your entire life that it's almost, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I did for sure, is like a grieving process of all of those years that you thought in a way that was just so detrimental and so mean to yourself.
I don't think about it that way, because I believe that everything happens for a reason in your life. And so for me, these 25 years happened to prepare me to be who I am today. Right? So would I not have had that, I would not be capable of doing the work that I'm doing today. I would not, if I would have not been fat, I would not have this perspective on body confidence. So for me, it's not something grieving. I've never, and I'm not denying that it can happen for some people, but with the lens that I have, I've never grieved, but instead honored.
Yeah. You've
what has
used
happened
it
to me.
Yeah. And the best coaches, the best speakers, they use their past, they use what they've gone through in order to help other people in that same position.
Yes. And I can, now that I train coaches, I can tell you that the most, like if I was to look at my pool of people I train, I can tell you those that have the deepest trauma in their past are the most powerful coach today.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you can't be a powerful coach without trauma. I'm just saying like the personal work they have done in working through their trauma has made them such a safe space for clients to come in and explore themselves.
Yeah, how can you take someone through the trauma work? How can you take someone through that process, which is so internal and so deep, if you haven't gone through it yourself?
Well, personally, I don't believe that it's possible. I live by and I honor deeply lived experience, but I also have people in my life who are PhDs, who honor intellectual work. And I think there's place for both. But I think when it comes to actually working with people, the lived experience will overthrow a PhD. PhD has its reason in science and studies and all of that. But the live experience, when you want to have counseling 101, is trump anything else.
Yeah. So I would love to know, I would like to put myself in the position of someone who has a PhD in dieting.
Yeah.
And that's mainly the audience that listens to this podcast, and I don't want them to get to a point where their body collapses and where they get to that rock bottom. But let's say they're on that hamster wheel of, if I lose weight, then I will feel worthy, then I will feel lovable, whatever that core belief is. How would you suggest that they get started in deconstructing the belief? Because I'm sure that a lot of them have lost weight and didn't feel worthy. And so maybe they're realizing it's not about the external, it's the internal, but how do I even begin doing that work?
I would say the first place is starting by honoring your current beliefs and not thinking they're wrong. So right now you believe that being in a thinner body is going to make your life better. And so I'm going to use some very clear coaching here, but I'm going to coach you if you're listening to this. It is 100% normal for you to believe that being in the smaller body will make you happier. Because everything around you has taught you this formula. From your doctor, your family, your friends, TV, magazine, everything you have been socialized to has sold you on that formula. So it makes total sense that you would believe that and honor that. And don't think it's wrong. That belief has led you to be here today and still alive and functioning. So let's honor that. Let's bring safety to that. And there's another way. Just know, and whenever it feels safe enough for you, there is another way of thinking actually going to create happiness for you. Because if you're experiencing happiness right now, you're saying, but I'm happy, great. Just know that the happiness you're experiencing today could be tenfold in the future. If you're ready, willing to explore that, then you can work with Sabrina and help you get to that 10 times more happiness or the beginning of happiness. There is another way. When you're ready, we can do that together.
Yeah. That's so powerful. And I'm putting myself in the shoes of someone who's listening to this, and someone might be asking, but how can I possibly be happy in a bigger body?
Know that happiness is an emotion. So happiness, confidence, right? Let's talk about confidence a little bit here. Confidence is nothing but an emotion. An emotion is something that happened inside of you. It's a bunch of sensation into your body that ignite an action into the world. So for example, walking into a room, shoulder high, owning the room, confident walking in, that is not created by anything external. That's what I call the safety of conformity. What people misunderstand is that they think, oh, when I'm thinner, I feel safer. And they misunderstand that with confidence. And it's true, when you're thinner, you're safer, you're protected from fat phobia. But that's not confidence. you're still not taking up space. You're still not going for what you want after. Confidence is an emotion. And emotion is created by the way you see the world, by the thoughts you think, by the belief system that you have. So how can you be happier? How can you be more confident? By changing the glasses that you wear every day. So I always use the analogy of a pair of glasses. The current way you see the world is the pair of glasses you wear. But if you take off those glasses, you put them on the nightstand at night, tomorrow morning you can pick up a new pair of glasses and see the same world differently. That's when you change your thoughts, and your belief will allow you to see the world differently. And that's when you're going to be able to create different emotion, happiness, and confidence.
Yeah. It's like if you wake up and you put gray glasses on, you're going to see everything gray. You're going to see yourself as a failure. You're going to see everyone judging you and everyone thinking of you as unworthy. If you put on rose-colored glasses, then you get to look at the whole world differently. But it starts with how you view the world, not what's going on externally.
And again, for many women, is your audience mainly women? I don't want to be...
Yes, yeah.
So for people self-identified as women, we view the world as the world tells us what we're allowed to think. So big piece of work that needs to be done for women is this concept of self-authorization. Just saying to women you can think differently, for most women, they're paralyzed because they don't understand that they have the right to change their thought. And this is usually a good couple weeks of work where you have to understand that you are allowed to pick one thought out of your brain, throw it out, and bring a new one in. Mm-hmm. Because your whole life, you've never been authorized to make that kind of decision in your life. So often it starts by understanding that you are allowed to, you can authorize yourself, and then you can start thinking different thoughts. And then you have to go through the process of believing these thoughts.
The way that I describe it is you have the permission to not go along with the shoulds of your life, what you should be thinking, because that's what a lot of people feel is, well, I should want to lose weight, right? And
that's what patriarchy teaches you. That's what diet culture, all the system surrounding people identified as women is the should system. Mm-hmm. Right? You should be like that. You should do this. You should think this. You should look like this. But never are we told, what do you think?
Yeah.
What do you want?
And it's difficult because you're swimming against the tide. It is so much easier to just go along with the natural current. Yeah. But when you start going against that, you do feel that resistance. You do feel that pressure. But you also get so much of your freedom and your autonomy back because now you're living life on your terms instead of letting other people dictate what you create.
Yes. And I want to say to those people who resist, that are in your life that are resisting, they're probably not seeing your possibility. They're only seeing your limitation, and you have to question their space in your life. Like whoever resists your growth in your life, whoever puts roadblock, you really have to question their intention in your life. Do you really need people who put roadblocks in your growth?
Yeah. So I have just one more question because I know that this is another big one. Other than how can I be happy in a bigger body when it comes to intuitive eating. And I think it's so amazing that you were able to be coached by Evelyn. That's awesome. But when it comes to intuitive eating, I'm sure that you've heard one of the biggest fear is, what if I completely lose control, gain weight, and become unhealthy? Because a lot of people will equate weight with health, and they believe intuitive eating means I'm just not going to be healthy, and that's a really tricky conversation to navigate, because you have to change again like someone's entire worldview on health and weight in order to get them to that place. So how do you navigate that question?
So the first place I want to start, I'll go back to normalization. So it's a process of coaching where we normalize. It makes total sense for you to think that, because everywhere you go, you're being told that your weights equal your health. So let's not try to tell you you're wrong for thinking that. But also, now I want you to close your eyes and look in your personal circle of people, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, friends. And I want you, let's look at women. Let's look in your personal circle of people. Let's think of people who have had or have breast cancer. And look, think of them, visualize them. Are they all fat people? Or are they a mixture of thin women and fat women? And when I ask this question, I don't have all of you in front of me right now that are listening to the podcast, but I've done this exercise hundreds of times, literally. And then I get this, oh my God, it's so true. There's as many people in my life, like that's why we bring it to personalization. There's as many people in my life that have cancer, that have had a heart attack, that are fat and thin. I'm like, oh, okay. So if by the rule that's running your brain, then all the fat people should have had cancer.
Yeah.
And all the thin people should have never had cancer. Like, if this belief you have is true, that should not be the case, is it? And now I want you to spend the next couple of weeks going around your life and do this inventory. The reason why I'm telling you to do this is because it brings it to real life. And then I can inundate you of studies demonstrating what I'm just getting you to do in your real life. Yeah. It is not true that weight and health are equal, but it makes sense that you think that. Yeah. Let's just dismantle this belief.
That's so powerful. And that cancer example, I had a similar experience with one of my clients yesterday, and she was saying, she said, I know I need to lose weight because of my joint pains. And what I explained to her is, I probably have more joint pains right now than most people who are overweight. Yeah. I have just chronic, I have scoliosis. My bones are just all over the place. And I am not in what society would consider a larger body. And I still have joint pains. Yeah. People in all bodies will have health issues.
The first stages of changing, so we're into the nitty-gritty of body image here. But when your body has been, so it is my view, it's not a fact, this is my view that women's body, for some women, are a trauma. They're in the same relationship as if it wasn't a physical abuse. Their body traumatized them every day. So if you're thinking about helping, coaching, or doing your own work, you have to take the approach that your body is a source of trauma. And the first stages is not to do something for mobility, it's to bring safety for you being in your body. Let's do that. And for many of us, working out for mobility is impossible because it turns into this weight loss spiral, right? So we kind of have to first bring safety in you being in your body. And the best way that I know to do that is to reframe your belief around women and body from a body neutrality standpoint. Completely shifting the question, why do I have a body? Most people identified as women have been socialized to believe they have a body to please others, either by their beauty, by their time doing things for others. Their body is the vehicle to please the world. Body neutrality says, no, you have a body to experience life, to eat, to talk to people, to listen to your loved one, to be caressed, to eat wonderful food, to explore your taste bud. your body is the vehicle to your senses to explore the world and have fun into the world. So we need to do that work first. We need to shift foundationally why you have a body. And then when you can be neutral, then becomes accessible what you're talking about. Respect. How can I maintain this machine so I can live my best life for as long as I can?
Yeah.
Maybe I need to do mobility work. Maybe I need to go see physiotherapists. Maybe I need to go for a walk. Like, what is best for me and my body from a place of respect? And then you're going to build a habit for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true, because the intention behind your choices is everything. And if you haven't gone to a place of true respect and self-love, and you're still doing it from a place of, like you said, trying to please other people, then it's never going to get you to that emotional place that you think it will.
Or permanent. Like, who doesn't want, when you quit diet culture, you want to create a joyful relationship with movement.
Yeah.
Like, you want to adopt a workout routine that's going to last for the rest of your life. But for that, we have to change the way we think about the workout, because we've been trying to think about it from weight loss. So it's like a re-engineering of why you do certain things and how you think about things.
Yeah. Oh, Steph, I could talk to you for hours. You are so incredible. And I love the stance that you take on body image and on the way that women should view their bodies, because you are not put on this work to make this, your body, a project.
No, you're not, we're not, our body is not a tool to earn our worth. That's really what we're taught. Through your body and achievement that your body can do, you will become lovable and worthy. And that foundational belief is what has held back women for centuries.
Yeah.
So if we can deconstruct that, I'm telling you, this is the most powerful work you can do, no matter which size of body you're in, and that's going to change the rest of your life.
Yeah. I'm thinking of all of the voices that we haven't heard, all of the people that haven't shown up on a bigger stage or haven't spoken up, because, like you said, society wants to keep women small. It wants to keep women quiet. And so we don't have these amazing voices, amazing opinions, amazing people who come forward and contribute to the world like they should.
Yeah, and it's changing slowly. Like, it's changing slowly, even in political circle. It's changing, and the world is changing as a result of that. What we're seeing, the world, without getting into politics, but the change we're seeing into the political structure is due to more women in roles of power. And it's just going to continue.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you are incredible. So as we wrap things up, what was the one thing that had the biggest impact in your life?
I want to say to you two things. What came out so for me, understanding the coaching and the model of cognitive behavioral coaching at the deepest level has been something that has changed my professional journey, but also my life. It has kind of put a bow on all the work that I had done on myself. And through that work, the first layer I worked through 6 years ago with my first coach was, I am enough. Because when you can start growing that belief that you are enough, your world change. Because nearly everything that I was doing before was to please the world. When that need is no longer there, then I reacquire my time, I reacquire my money, I reacquire what I do with myself and my career. I reacquire all those places that were draining me before.
Yeah.
So that would be the two things.
How important was intuitive eating for you wrapped into that?
Intuitive eating for me came first. So I did intuitive eating with a lot of hardship. Because when I did intuitive eating, I did it from the place of a dietitian, because that's what the author of intuitive eatings are. They didn't have a deep understanding of the nervous system and the brain. So it was a much longer than it should have been. Like It took almost 2.5 years and a lot of swinging the pendulum for like way longer than it needed to, and all the drama that goes against that. So it was important, but that was not like, it didn't shook me to my core as much as understanding how my brain and nervous system work.
It's so interesting that you say that, because I'm putting together a presentation right now, and that's actually exactly what I mentioned. Is when I was learning about intuitive eating, I saw a gap, even though it's such a key important framework. I saw a gap, and it's, if people don't understand the way that their brains work, the way that their thoughts affect their emotions, affect their behaviors, it's really difficult to affect like all of those pieces and put it together so that it becomes part of your new system, your new framework.
That's it. And again, it's not because something is wrong. Mm-hmm. I think it's because if you get into the behind the scene of intuitive eating was a process that was first created for eating disorder. Mm-hmm. Knowingly that eating disorder is, back in the days, 15, 20 years ago, was created treated in centers where the dietitian came in and just did the food piece when the other trades or therapists were around. And then so they extracted that process out of this, which is magnificent and so powerful. But when it's not combined with therapy or CBT, then there's struggle.
I could not agree more. Well, Steph, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your incredible wisdom. I'm sure that so many people are going to want to follow you and learn more from you. So where can they find you?
So since we're on the podcast, the easiest is my podcast, Going Beyond the Food. It's been around for 6 years. You probably found me, Sabrina, through my podcast, because back in the days, it was the first intuitive eating podcast. Now there's hundreds of them. Going Beyond the Food podcast, 300 and some odd episodes. And then from there, my website, stephaniedodier.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on here today. And I'm sure that's going to be so valuable for our listeners. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me and the opportunity to share my thoughts with the world.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you got so much value from this episode. If you did, make sure that you share it with someone you know who could use it, or send me a message on Instagram. I would love to know your thoughts. And if you haven't done so already, I would love to see you on our Food Freedom Fridays, Coaching Over Coffee on Zoom, where I am there every Friday to answer questions, offer free coaching, and be there to support you and guide you on your intuitive eating journey. It is absolutely free, and it has been so incredible to get to connect with all of you in my community on Fridays with a hot cup of coffee. So to sign up, you know the drill, head to the link in my show notes or go to sabrinamagnan.com/coffee, and I will see you there. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magnan Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.